Our story takes place during one of the most transformative periods in human history, the Middle Ages, a time when the world was undergoing dramatic shifts. Across the European continent, the whispers of a new kind of war began to stir, religious wars that would alter the course of history forever. This was the beginning of the Crusades, a series of religious wars initiated by the Catholic Church, aimed at reclaiming Jerusalem from Muslim rule. The 11th century saw Pope Urban II rally the First Crusade in 1095, urging all Christians to take up arms and march toward the Holy Land. These were not just military campaigns, they were religious undertakings, fueled by the desire to free the sacred city of Jerusalem from Islamic rule and secure it for Christianity. As armies from Europe converged on the Levant, they carried with them the promise of salvation, the hope of eternal life in exchange for their efforts. The Crusaders were driven by a fervent belief in their cause, their faith acting as both their shield and their sword. And yet, the Crusades would not only affect the Holy Land, they would have far-reaching consequences that would shape the entire world for centuries to come. But while the Crusaders fought for religious dominance in the East, a new force was emerging in the West, the Age of Exploration. Beginning in the late 15th century, European nations embarked on daring voyages across uncharted seas, driven by a thirst for knowledge, riches, and power. The first spark of this exploration came with the voyages of Christopher Columbus in 1492, who, seeking a new route to India, accidentally stumbled upon the New World. His discovery opened the floodgates for a wave of exploration that would forever alter the world's map. But Columbus was only the beginning. Soon, Vasco da Gama, the Portuguese explorer, would sail around the southern tip of Africa, opening a sea route to India. Ferdinand Magellan, leading the first expedition to circumnavigate the globe, pushed the boundaries even further. These explorers, driven by the promise of fortune and glory, set the stage for the European colonial era, during which vast new territories were claimed in the Americas, Africa, and Asia. The Age of Exploration not only created new trade routes and wealth for European monarchs, but also set off a wave of cultural exchanges that would forever change the world. However, it also brought devastation and suffering to indigenous populations, as European powers colonized lands and subjugated native people. Back in the East, the Crusades had a significant lasting impact. While they failed to secure Jerusalem for long, they left behind a legacy of cultural exchange between the West and the Islamic world. The Crusaders, in their quest to take Jerusalem, came into contact with Islamic culture, which had long been at the forefront of scientific and intellectual advancements. Many Crusaders returned home with exotic goods, spices, silks, and new technologies, along with an appreciation for Arabic medicine, mathematics, and philosophy. The transmission of knowledge across the Mediterranean helped ignite a cultural renaissance in Europe, which would blossom in the coming centuries. The Crusades also had significant geopolitical effects, as the balance of power in the region shifted. The Ottoman Empire eventually rose in the east, while Western Europe saw the rise of monarchies who began to consolidate power and wealth, setting the stage for the modern nation-state. In the wake of the Crusades, one of the most powerful empires in history began to emerge, the Ottoman Empire. Founded by Osman I in the late 13th century, the Ottomans expanded rapidly, conquering large parts of the Middle East, Eastern Europe, and North Africa. The Ottomans were masters of military strategy, utilizing their advanced cavalry and artillery to secure victories against their enemies. The empire would reach its height in the 16th century under Suleiman the Magnificent, who expanded Ottoman territory to its greatest extent and brought the empire to the brink of global dominance. The most significant impact of the Age of Exploration, however, came when European settlers began to colonize the Americas. With Columbus's discovery of the New World, European powers began to establish colonies across the vast continents. From Cortez's conquest of the Aztecs to Pizarro's destruction of the Incan Empire, European colonization reshaped the Americas. But these conquests came at a great cost. The indigenous peoples of the Americas suffered immensely, as they were subjected to violence, forced labor, and diseases that decimated their populations. The riches from the Americas, gold, silver, and other precious resources, helped fuel the rise of European empires. At the same time, these new territories provided the resources and wealth that would sustain European dominance for centuries. By the time the Age of Exploration came to a close, the world had been irrevocably transformed. New trade routes were established, connecting continents and cultures in ways never seen before. This period also laid the foundation for the modern world we know today, shaping the future of trade, culture, and geopolitics for centuries to come. world was becoming increasingly interconnected, and this interconnectedness led to the formation of powerful European empires, the spread of new ideas, and the birth of the modern global economy. As we look back at the age of exploration, the Crusades, and their consequences, we begin to see how these historical events set the stage for the world we live in today. As we conclude this chapter in history, we reflect on the power of exploration, the legacy of the Crusades, and the global transformations that followed. The Age of Discovery did not just map out new lands, it mapped out a new world of possibilities. And although the consequences of these events were not always just, the Age of Exploration and the Crusades laid the groundwork for the globalized world we live in today. From the Crusaders who marched to the Holy Land, to the explorers who crossed oceans and continents, to the empires that rose and fell, these events shaped the course of history and our understanding of the world. This is the story of how human ambition, faith, and the thirst for discovery propelled us into a new era, changing the world forever.